No.
You there?
He's working on his audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
So
can
there-
hear you, though, so yours is fine. We're just waiting on Nathan's.
Okay.
I am getting kind of an echo from somebody. I'm getting feedback from what you're hearing.
Okay, are you getting feedback when I talk?
Are you getting feedback from me?
It's all of you. So it's someone's audio is coming back through.
It's got to be yours then if you're getting it from both of us.
You might have two windows open.
Yeah, it might have been me. Yeah, I think I fixed it. Well, I guess this is my show for right now. How are we doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. AZ Wildcat Dave. How's up? And I'm guessing Chris 24 Catches our ASU guy.
Yes.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. We get the Utah and BYU connection here usually, but now we get the AU. I'm from Scottsdale myself, so.
Oh, okay. Must be toasty.
Oh, my goodness. It is going to be a rough summer here. They're calling for 120s as being a regular occurrence.
That's why I'm glad I'm down here. At least it's like 10, 15 degrees cooler. So.
Down in Tucson?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, how about now?
got you, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. I am so sorry. I actually was going to start with a video, and then my audio broke out. So I'm going to put us all in the background. I'm going to take a cue from Patrick, who wanted us to watch 30 seconds of this. So hang on one sec. Here we go. If it'll play.
I turned off my camera.
All right, so let's kick this off. I've got a bunch of guests here with me today. We're gonna start there, and then we'll move through the show. The end of the world is queued up because of what the CW came out and did for the ACC, and so that sort of screwed up what my agenda was going to be for today at Hijacked. I had Chris 24 Catch with me and Arizona Dave. We're gonna really explain to everybody how Arizona in general, the state and the fans are feeling about realignment right now. Pac-12 can't be making people feel very comfortable. So that's where I was going to start. And then the CW news came out. I watched Greg's show. I don't know if you guys were able to see me on there, but I think that asked some key questions. And I'm hoping we can sort of sort through those as we talk right now. So I'm going to introduce Chris 24 Catch. What do you want to tell us first off, Chris? Oh, he's linking out. How about you, Dave?
I don't feel good about this CW ACC thing. I didn't get a chance to see Greg's video yet.
Okay. Well, then you'll find out when we talk about it, because we're going to talk about it in just a minute. How about Larry? What did you think about that news, Larry?
Al, thanks for sending me that link, Nathan.
Oh, you bet.
Wow. It's just another code to decipher.
Right.
So I think it's a very interesting topic. There's 6 ways from Sunday to take it.
I think it's very fair. Immaculate, what are you thinking about it?
I don't think it's an absolute in any one direction. I would say it certainly isn't good for the pack. I wouldn't say that's it for the pack. There's no CW involved with this at all.
Right.
I have a hard time believing that CW is going to go all in, all at once, taking on ACC content, taking on pack content. We're going to go big. We're going to have multiple time slots for showing this. Maybe they do. I don't know. But with the ACC side, they have Raycom doing production, so that's
Right.
tried and true. I know it's going to be pretty good. So if you're dealing with them, who's even producing for the pack? So honestly, I think probably Raycom just reached out to them because they saw they were in talks with the pack over that, and Raycom needs someone to replace Bally's, and it's probably just that simple.
So here's the headline: ACC football and basketball coming to the CW network this fall. I'm not going to go into this real deep. If you watched Greg Flugar's show a little bit ago, he went through this in detail. There's no reason to actually do quotes or anything like that. But there was one line I thought that I found interesting, and that is, and here comes Chris.
There we go.
This one line, it says, "We are committed to making the CW a destination for live appointment viewing." I'll highlight it so everybody knows where I'm at. Appointment viewing for for sporting events. And then he says the CW network, ACC, is home to some of the most decorated college football and basketball teams in the country, and we look forward to welcoming those avid sports fans to the network as we continue to broaden our audience. So what does everybody believe? What does everybody think about that line? And Chris, you just joined us, so I'll let you go first. How do you answer that? What do you think when you see this from the CW and the ACC today?
Dude, I am fine with the CW. Actually, Greg Swain was tweeting about it like just before I got on, was able to get on here.
Right.
And I'm fine. Like, this is it. This is what I read right here. If ASU is on the CW, I am perfectly content turning on the CW. I watch ASU games. I was born in Charlottesville, so I'll watch some UVA games. I may watch some rivalry games. There's a handful. So I might have 1 to 3 games on a weekend, or I might be going back and forth. And if it's on CW, who cares? You can find the CW. This isn't like Apple or Amazon, and we're talking about subscriptions, which I'll dive in later. If you have a linear channel you can go to, who cares? It doesn't matter anymore. You just hit last, and you can line up all your last like YouTube TV. I can line up all my last. I can have ESPN, Fox, NBC, ABC, and CW, right? And they're all lined up. I can go last. If it's linear TV, CW, oh my God. I don't even know in Arizona. This is really sad. But Colorado, CW's Channel 2. Then you have 479. And then Fox 31, and then you have your ESPN. It's easy. It's not hard. I know there's a lot of Big 12 fans or anti-Pac fans that laugh at the CW, and same with the ACC. They laugh at the whole situation, but it's just a TV channel.
Right.
Who cares? ESPN's firing people. I don't see anybody getting fired on the CW. Who cares if I can watch ASU, then The Flash, we're cool.
Okay.
I'm fine. It don't matter. It doesn't matter where I consume it. And probably, you know what's going to happen? If the ACC is on the CW and the Pac ends up on the CW, you're going to have a West Coast and East Coast fans all up and down their coast. CW is going to blow up. CW is making money. And all of our friends on Twitter are going to be like, I love CW. I'm going to watch me some more CW.
So let me get a couple things done off the top, since I appreciate everybody sticking with me as I had technical difficulties 30 seconds before the show starts.
We're good.
You guys are the people who watch my show know that they need to be flexible, because I make mistakes all the time. I want to make a couple comments behind me. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm actually putting in shelves. There's been a
Sweet.
lot of complaints that I haven't had Big 12, the banner up. I haven't had, helmets or anything like that. So if you guys have stuff that you want to send me, just send me a DM, and I'm happy to give you my address. And whatever you send me, I will profile behind me. I'm taking comments that you guys are given in the regular comment section and on Twitter, and I'm trying to institute those changes. So it's going to be a little bit better. I still got a little more building to do, but yeah, I'm making those changes. The other thing is I want to make sure everybody knows to subscribe. You give us a thumbs up. Let everybody know that we have a show going. Greg Flugar was fantastic in bumping my show, and I really appreciate him. One of these days, I'm going to be the lucky guy that he actually comes and visits on. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but it's going to be sometime. And then up in the right-hand corner of the screen, if you've got your cell phone, you're watching on your computer, that's a QR code. I'm getting feedback from somebody. I'm not sure who that is.
Maybe me.
Let me just mute you for a second, Chris.
Yep.
So, no, it wasn't Chris. The QR code, scan that. If you're a BYU fan, sign up for the $10 a month. I'm going to mute everybody. I'm not sure who that is. $10 a month NIL, support BYU, and we're going to have a show on that in the near future. Don't get caught up in it. I'm just letting everybody know that if you're a BYU fan, that's the way to support BYU. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a link scrolling. That's to join the channel. Your comments will always be read as much as I can. I get buried in comments now, and I don't have a little general doing my production in the background. So at the end of the day, if you want your comment read, I get all the highlighted ones done first. Those are subscribers. Go to the Big 12 page, hit join, and you can do a subscription. And super chats are always welcome. Any money I'm getting now, I'm putting back into the show, more production value, and then obviously the stuff behind me. So let me get some call outs right from the beginning. Blake was on, Immaculate. BR was in the house. BR and Glenn are both subscribers. Let's see who else. Then Patrick came in. He came in right about the time I was losing my comms. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. K-Do, thanks for being here. Let's see who else we got. Earl Carr, who's a subscriber. Thanks for being here, Earl. Your loyalty is very much appreciated. And then Sergeant Pickles coming in to represent Washington. And then the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. That's my man, Jason Watkins. If you guys are not subscribed to Jason Watkins' show, you are behind. Jason's on top of stuff. He's actually at Big 12 Media Days today. And you find him on Twitter and find him on YouTube. Let's see if there's anybody else. Oh, Larry came in. He's a subscriber, obviously. We got Patrick Wiegel. Is that right? I say V because I took German in high school. Patrick, thanks for being here. And then Robert Franz is here. Great to see you guys. And let me just get to the bottom. Nick's in the house. Great to see you, Nick. And then Bill is the last one I'll mention. Thanks for being here, Bill. I appreciate it. All right, now let me turn on mics. I think, Immaculate, that might have been you. I am not sure. But I was getting feedback from somebody.
I know it was me earlier, but I don't think it was me this time, but we'll see.
That's okay. So you listened to Greg's show. You were there. What were you thinking about this CW thing? And everybody's going to get a chance to talk about this.
Well, going into what Chris said, because I live here in Scottsdale, just right up the highway from the campus. CW is in the teens here. So, yeah, I do the same thing as you. I just do a bunch of games, put them on, and I just last button through the whole list. So if it's on CW, it's fine.
Yeah.
My thing with CW would be what's the production value going to be? Who are the people talking during the game? Stuff like that. But CW itself is fine. And this does tell us that CW is in this market now.
Right.
That announcement that you just showed, actually, if I was to try to put this in numbers like Greg does, this actually puts the bar a little bit more in favor of the pack.
Okay.
I think so. That's just my opinion.
What are you imagining? What Chris was saying? You have a morning or a mid-afternoon game with the ACC, and then you stay on the CW for the fourth or fifth game in the Pac-12. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I can see that, and especially if it's kind of a loose affiliation where some of the different channels can pick what to play or whether or not they want to play it or not.
Right.
Your CW channel may only play one of two games. So,
fair enough. Yeah, they might not take the ACC game.
They might not take the ACC game, and they might just take the PAC game. So
if
they got like a a coast to coast thing, like Chris was saying, there was good points. They could have it geared towards affiliates across the country where you only play the ACC one or you only play the Pac one. So I hadn't thought of that angle, and that's possible too. I mean, they might be along with the Pac as well, because they're definitely in the business. That was their statement. It wasn't just we're just doing the ACC. It was we're in this business.
Now, I was talking to Larry earlier offline, and he had some interesting ideas about the way that this would break down. And now he's actually read because I found the article, I got it over to him, and I really appreciate his opinion. Larry, now that you've digested this information, what do you think about it? Oh, you're on mute if you're talking. Sorry. There you
It's really interesting. So I read CW, which I downloaded it for Live. CW has a free app. So if, I'm seeing in the chat, so if, everybody's saying, well, if it's not in your market, you can't watch it. Actually, right. CW has a free app. So you have a streaming option without a purchase. The CW app is free.
Okay.
So that was in the article. And it's really hard to see. The only game that I saw scheduled, that I saw reported, was the Pitt.
Cincinnati. It was Pitt
Cincinnati game. Yeah. And was that this year? Or is that?
Yeah, it's supposed to be in September. I think that it was September 9th. Let me see if I can find it. You keep going. I'm going to see if I can find it.
So my opinion of this is, can the CW open up 2 windows? Can they have remember back in the day, you'd watch the Jazz, it would just be in our time zone.
Right.
And then the CW could show the Charlotte Hornets or the Miami Heat on a CW on the East Coast. So I think you've got a lot of different options there. I don't know if this is good or bad for the Pac. Is this an ESPN move trying to shut the door a little more?
Right.
And also, I don't know, Bob Iger, who is the CEO and president of Disney,
right,
stated today on CNBC that they are looking for a linear partner. Is that Apple, or could that be CW, because they do have linear? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this. And so after reading that article, we talked, Nathan, it's hard to say. There's moves going on, in my opinion, that are between streamers and networks, and they're jockeying. And I think all of these little deals that everybody else is doing is just kind of peanuts to what's really going on, which is the networks and streamers in a power play right now. That's what I think.
I'll get to Moen in just a second, but Dave, you looked like you had something to say. Did you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say what Chris was saying. I agree that CW is definitely, I don't mind being on the CW. I think it'd be good. The concern I had is if you're this deal with the ACC and CW, why, if they were doing it with the Pac too, why didn't they just announce it also with the Pac?
Right.
I mean, it would be a perfect time to say, oh, we're partnering with the ACC and the Pac, so we can be on both coasts. And I just confused why. I guess maybe they're not working with the Pac, is what I'm thinking.
I think it's.
Otherwise,
I would say that they're not. Sorry, I would just say it's because we don't have a deal. That's it. We just don't. That's not all together. ACC everybody has a deal but us. So somebody throws on a TV network. It could be like we could be on the Live Network, CW. We can be on everything. Who knows? So we can't just here's a third of what our package is.
Right.
I agree with you.
So Moen has joined us. Moen, really appreciate you being here. You and Immaculate are my subject matter experts, with Larry, actually. I want to throw Larry in there as well. So you were on Greg's show. I'm sure you've read the article. A lot that's going on with the Big Ten. Where does this change anything with the Pac at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't. I think what we're going to look at with the Pac is they're just going to send out games of the week for networks to bid on for time slots that are needed. I don't think they're going to have a linear partner. It's a linear concept.
So that's got to be a little disheartening for people who think that this might, and I talked to Larry about this, but it'll sort of break the glass ceiling and open it up so that the perception isn't too bad because I know for one thing, one thing he hated about the Ion CWID in the first place was the perception. And you are a lot about perception, which is why I wanted you to join today, because I think like the perception for adding UConn to the Big 12, I was of the mind, let's just get him in and we can get him, up and everything will be fine. But the longer this goes, I'm sort of in your camp now. I'm thinking, let's stay at 12, try to pick up some Pac-12. If it doesn't work, then at the next contract, or when everything blows up with the ACC, that would be the time to have that larger conversation. Is that still kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, UConn's going to be there 4 years from now, 6
Right.
years from now, 8 years from now. UConn doesn't have anywhere to go.
Right.
So why should the Big 12 rush to grab UConn when there's more valuable properties that could be available down the road?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Does anybody have any opinions about the UConn thing before we come to Pac-12s?
I think UConn picking them up is a big deal, just in the sense of they just won a national championship, right? And the Big 12 talks a lot about basketball.
Right.
But if basketball is the main thing here, like you said, UConn can wait. So who do you want to bring in? Which Power 5 schools can you bring in? ACC is locked in a contract.
Right.
And Arizona is the only big Power 5 school that's really available. And if the escalator contract this is what it is, Big 12 can add a P5 school. Let's add in Arizona. We get basketball. CU looks like they're voting on something. I don't know what they're voting for, but if you look at the Regents notes, they voted
that was yesterday.
Right?
They did something, but nobody knows what it is, which tells me it was something.
Right? Something's going on. And Tad Boyle and Boulder, they're doing a really good job with basketball. So you have an above average basketball team there. ASU has been a handful of March Madness since Bobby Hurley got there. So they're doing decent. And so there's Oregon's been on the top there. Utah's had some good basketball teams. There's good basketball programs within the Pac. And so if ESPN is going to pay to bring on these power schools, then you would go into these power schools, try to lock them up. UConn's not going anywhere. San Diego State's definitely not going anywhere. You get your Power 5, you get your escalators, you get them all paid up. You start making some money. You have some money. You allow the Mountain West schools that are going to jump to the other powers to put in their notice so they're not paying double their fee. And then they come in 2025 and not 2024.
I think that's a fair assessment. Sergeant Pickles here, and I'm just picking and choosing these comments, guys. Don't take it personal if I don't call it out. There's just so many. But Pickles says with both ESPN and CW News, I see as either neutral or good for the Pac, actually. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it could be the glass ceiling. It could be the breakout perception thing. But I actually think the other way. I think it's ESPN shutting doors, trying to lock the CW out so they can't get the Pac-12. Is that too much tinfoil hat, or do you guys buy that as a reasonable modus operandi?
I don't think that has anything to do with that.
Okay.
ESPN is not doing business to thwart the Pac-12.
Okay.
ESPN, it's part of Disney. And they're the only profitable part of Disney. The last thing they're going to do is just go out there to try and mess with the Pac-12. It's just, this became available. It's another revenue stream for ESPN and Disney. And that's the only reason they do it. I don't think there's any ulterior motive or, some grand conspiracy to keep the Pac off of the CW. Like I said, I think ultimately what happens is they get this short-term Apple deal, and then they'll just go to market each week with the games. And, it could be a week where they'll look and say, hey, there's not a great primetime game. Let's put Oregon, Washington on primetime and send that out to bid and see if somebody grabs it. Like CW might be running the ACC afternoon game that week, so they'll pick up that 8 p.m. slot from the Pac. So I don't think that they're going to do it through an actual partner. It's just going to be everybody bidding on it.
So I think when we're talking about, I think one thing we have to look at is it seems like these are out of conference. And so if the CW is going to carry the out of conference game in a tier 3 package, the home team gets the network. So if the ACC team plays somewhere else, that somebody else gets the rights to air that game. They'll be paid. So if Clemson goes and plays Washington, at Washington, the CW and the ACC don't get to pick where that game is being aired. So we're talking 13 games. Those are going to be home games. So that's not to say that the Pac-12 can't sell rights to their home games. So I think we got to remember that these are going to be home games for the ACC.
Let's clarify also something else. There is no new money, right? The ACC is not getting any new money.
No, that's ESPN's money.
Yeah,
that's all for ESPN.
They sold their used car, so they get to keep the money. That's what we're talking about here. So if we're imagining that something similar would happen immediately with the Pac, they're not the same. They're two different animals. One, you're buying a used car. The other one, you have to build the garage to put the car in. And it makes a huge difference in the perception. And from the Arizona guys, but this goes to both of you. I don't care who takes it first, but the Arizona right now has been in this cleft stick, right? You guys, you were excited to possibly move to the Big 12. Then it was like, oh, Apple's going to be the white knight and save the Pac-10. Now I'm back, and then you jump back because you hear negative news. Are you guys just both, you don't care? You just want to see what boots up next September on, September 3rd to watch football?
I think I'll champion that really quick because that was me. I think you described me to a T on that one.
I think I did actually. That you were the guy I'm thinking of.
I was like, I'm out. I saw this. I'm out. Let's go to the Big 12.
Right.
And I'm done with this. And then the whole AAU thing chipped in. I was like, oh, well, maybe there's a Big 10 opportunity. And then this Apple conversation came in. I'm just like, and I still think it could work if it's done right. I don't trust that they can do it. Right. Streaming's the future. It is what it is there. But after they said, we have this framework, and then there really wasn't a framework, I'm like, you guys are full of crap. So I'm just like, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, I don't care. Get me out of the pack. It's not worth it. And that's what I would look at the schools. Okay, CW and ACC, they have a deal. Apple may do some linear thing. Mullen was bringing up, well, we can sell these games to this linear package. If you're the school, and I'll pass this over to you, Dave, if you're Arizona, you're in charge of Arizona, does that sound like a good enough deal to stay in the pack? Because if you leave in any one school, I fully believe this, if one school leaves the pack, they all splinter, they all leave. Is that enough to keep Arizona in the pack? Or does Arizona say, like, I'm done, I'm out, I'm going over to the Big 12? CU's like, I'm with you. And then ASU's like begrudgingly going because they're going to lose some of their relationships. But they'll go because it's better to be Big 12 Power 5 than it is to be Pac-4 G5.
Right.
Yeah, I think
what do you think, Dave?
You have to go at that point. I think you have to go at that point. It's extremely unstable. They're, even if whenever we, get back to where we were, because we're kind of in a rebuilding phase right now, doesn't guarantee that we're going to get any visibility. I mean, the networks are going to pay for the games they want. So, I mean, and then you don't even know how much money you're going to get every week. It's like completely
that is tough.
Well,
so go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I would say what's frustrating is Arizona's football program is getting better. Basketball program is blue chip. ASU's just above water for basketball, but ASU's recruiting and their transfer portal has been awesome. CU's transfer portal has been awesome. The recruiting's been awesome for this year. We've been doing that without a TV deal.
Right.
So either there's a TV deal we don't know about that they're telling the recruits that the recruits have to say that they can't talk about, or there's something going on that's building confidence in these recruits. Yeah, they can all jump in the portal and leave after this year if it doesn't work out. But not everything's adding up with the recruiting versus not. Because if this conference was really going to crash and burn, would those three schools really be finding success, especially like bottom level schools finding success? It doesn't make sense.
The thing that is common sense that strikes me though is if any story like that made it out to one recruit, stay with us. We're good. We're going to be Apple. Or, when he,
Right.
that would have blown a long time ago. There's no way you can keep 3 people in a room from keeping a secret, let alone high school recruits, So if anything's happening, it's in the dead of night. And I just don't think people know what it is. I think that's a big if. Pickles says, I'm waiting for the inevitable double standard that ACC signs with the CW and won't sign with the pack. I believe that. Do you guys believe that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was always a good deal if they could sign with CW, because CW gets in 92% of households over the air.
They are.
I always thought CW was a great deal for the pack. Now it's not going to happen.
Right. So
Robert wants to watch us burn.
Yeah, he does. Robert's saying this will tell you the CW no longer interested in the pack. That's Robert's opinion, not mine. I don't want to get caught in that. So I got a couple here from Patrick that I wanted to get to. So Sam Bradshaw, who I really respect. If you don't know who he is, follow him on Twitter. He's a 365 sports guy, and they all work together. And Patrick, I think, if he doesn't do work with them, he certainly coordinates with them. But he says, Sam Bradshaw says no TV space for PAC from CW now. So he thinks it's a one and done, that if CW is taking ACC and immediately denies them the PAC because they just don't have the leverage to do both.
Well, where's the TV spots? So there's ACC games on the CW. It's not like the CW has 3 or 4 different channels they can spread this out on. So that just means the CW is just not going to be on the PAC, because where are you going to put their space? Same problem with ESPN. Same problem with Fox. They filled all these time slots for games moving past 2024. So where are you going to fit? And the PAC's deal is done June 30th, 2024.
Right.
Like, it looks like it's just 2 trains. We're just getting closer and closer, and nobody wants to pull the brake and get off. We're like, we're going to take this to the very end, and it's going to blow up, and we're all going to laugh because we saw it coming years ago.
So K-Do, and I think this is very on point, and anybody can address it after I read it. The negotiations only took a month. That stood out to me. It stood out to Greg. I think it stands out to anybody who's done any amount of research on this subject. The fact that we've heard nothing but excuses from the PAC. The one that really got me out of all the ones I heard from Klavkov, and then I'll let you guys say yours or whatever, is in December when he said, TV executives don't negotiate. They don't work in December. And the 2 seconds after he sent that out on Twitter, Bob Thompson came on and says, I never got December's off. So we know that's nonsense, right? He's come up with nothing but excuse after excuse to cover for the shortcomings on what has been a year-long saga. So do you guys have any thoughts about this, the fact that this only took a month?
If I may on that one.
Yep.
This is different than the PAC situation. This is a deal that's already been done. This is Raycom's deal. Raycom had this deal already in place. Alley's went bankrupt. They could no longer do the distribution. They needed a new partner. They probably saw the talks about CW talking with the PAC and then reached out to them and said, hey, if you're interested, we already produced. You don't have to do anything other than just showcase it. So I don't think that this would take a long time. But one side has a need. The other side wants to be in it. They come together. It looks like it would probably be a pretty easy deal to do. The question is now, CW can't talk about the PAC if they're in that because they're not the main party.
Right.
If it's Apple, that's their announcement to make. CW would be a partner of theirs like they are with Raycom. So just kind of
that wouldn't come from the CW, you're saying. That would come after whoever has the primary tier 1 rights would announce. They'd put it all out at once.
Yeah, and then probably you'd see something from CW. Like, we're proud to be working with whatever. But yeah, they're not gonna one up whomever they're trying to work a deal with.
Right. It was an accusation. It was they acquired the contract that was already there.
Right.
Basically. So,
fair enough.
Yeah, and I've said it a million times. I think what's going on is a lot bigger than the peanuts that are, being looked at in the Pac-12. And is the CW are they contracted to have to show reruns at a certain time? Could they actually decide to maybe run 2 football games on a Saturday? Does Mr. Bradshaw know that? I'm sorry, I'm just getting defensive because I've had conversations with this Bradshaw guy, and I find him, he's a good guy, but I find some of the information that he puts out there is half truth and slated towards one side of the coin.
We're right.
And I've agreed with him on Big 12 is going to get an awesome Fox 3:30 game, and they'll probably get a good ESPN 2 game. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I believe that. But I think pretty much the rest of it is going to be shoved in a back room. And so I think he's done great work, but I've kind of done my own numbers on it, and I've looked at it in a micro vacuum, not a macro. And so that's where I'm at. Sorry not to try not to get defensive on a certain person, but.
Well, actually, Larry, both can be true.
Right.
Absolutely. What he's saying could absolutely be true, but that doesn't mean that they're able to build something in to cover the Pac-12 too. They could add
that's what
it.
I'm saying, like, they're going off of what somebody's saying, and I'm just thinking, does he run the programming for CW?
Well, obviously not.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think anybody except for Mo and Vision, nobody else here is a program director. So I'm not sure.
Well, the thing with CW is Nexstar Media Group owns the majority of CW stations.
Okay.
So Nexstar can tell all its stations it has to carry this at this time. There's a handful of affiliates left, and some of the stations are actually giving up affiliate because they don't want to be associated with Nexstar and becoming independent stations again.
Okay. Yeah, I think there were 9 of them that Greg.
Right. Yeah, they're going independent. They're leaving, but that CW will still be in that market. I believe Nexstar is just moving it to one of their previously owned stations.
Okay.
Which could have been any number of things, but yeah, if it's Nexstar that's actually running it, they can force all these channels to put certain things on specific times, and then those local affiliates also have flexibility on their local programming if they have 10 o'clock news, what syndicated reruns they want to run at 11 o'clock, those sorts of things. But
okay.
I'm in Florida. Golden Girls is a great show down here at like 8 o'clock at night.
So somebody said the first game. I'm not sure who it was. I can't remember, but the first game is supposed to be Pitt against Cincinnati, and that's on September 9th. So that'll be the first game, and I'm guessing that's at Cincinnati. Is that a Cincinnati home game? I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to check that because they don't really make it clear who's the home team there, but
it would probably have to be Pittsburgh.
It would probably have to be Pitt, right?
Pitt.
Okay. They worded that really weird in the article anyway. Here's another comment from Pickles. With the news about ESPN, I'm even more okay with Apple getting the majority of the pack. So let's talk about that because I didn't explore that in the early either. There was a Bob Iger interview that was done that they came out, and it was wide, expansive reach about Disney in general, and then they talked about all the subsidiary companies, Marvel. They talked about Disney Co, and then they also talked about ESPN. And when they talked about ESPN, he said that he's open to basically selling a portion, not a controlling stake, but a contributor stake to the ownership of ESPN. So the rumors that we heard about 3 weeks ago was that Apple was considering buying all of ESPN. Now we have Bob Iger coming out and saying that's not what he's looking at. He's looking to do a portion of that. So what do you guys think about that piece? Because I found that really interesting this morning.
Well, Hulu, I was going to say Hulu used to be, kind of did the same thing with Disney. And then now Disney owns Hulu. So they kind of they got a little bit of stake, and then they built upon it, and then they eventually own the whole thing. And now they have it integrated also with ESPN and Disney Plus. So, I mean, that's where I kind of go with that. They start selling a little bit of it, and I think they're going to keep continuing to sell more of it until it's. So I think
anybody else?
The end game.
Well, as a stockholder, this is all Bob Iger trying to cover for the losses of every other division under Disney.
Okay.
ESPN is basically their cash cow right now. Okay. ESPN brought in $8.5 billion in profit last year.
Wow.
Disney Plus is losing money. The Disney movies this year have been losing money. The Pixar movie lost money. Indiana Jones lost money. So yeah, they're looking to make money. They're trying to get money to cover those losses. And one of the things they did, the layoffs at ESPN, as I said on Greg's show, those weren't because ESPN wasn't making money. It was so ESPN could make even more money to cover the losses of the other divisions.
Right.
So I imagine this equity stake is probably something like 15 to 20%. And they're doing that in order to, again, try and make more money off ESPN to cover the losses from the other divisions.
If they did 20%, that would still leave them a 60% controlling stake.
80%.
Well, no, because another 20 is sold to a different group. They've already they only own 80 right now.
Okay. So yeah, they would have 60.
They would have
controlling
60.
interest.
Yeah. But still, that's controlling, right? That's the major point.
Yeah.
Is it would be controlling. And I agree with you. Disney, they don't want to sell ESPN because it's making money.
Right.
But, I think the Apple thing had legs because they can write a check and buy any corporation in the world. So you can't just out of hand throw that out the window.
Right. But I think that would be their last resort to do that.
Right.
I think they don't want to give away any more ESPN. It's the only thing that's making them money.
Right.
They need to get the rest of the house in order. But I think Bob Iger's probably throwing that out there to shareholders just to try and get himself some breathing room, because the news at Disney has not been good this year, and it's looking to get a whole lot worse. So we'll see.
I think that's a fair point. Anybody else want to speak on that point before I move to my next one? I've got a bunch today.
My opinion is, with Bob Iger saying that they wanted somebody to buy in that has that's a streamer. I don't know. I mean, you can buy high. I mean, I've heard Amazon's going to be in on this app, in on the Pac-12 deal as well. What part, I don't know. Can you imagine if Amazon and Apple really decided to jump all in to become a streaming sports broadcaster?
Right.
There's nobody they couldn't buy.
Of course.
I don't care how much Disney doesn't want to do something.
Right.
If somebody drives up a stock double, you're gonna sell. So yeah, that's my
fair point. Anybody else have anything on that?
I mean, it just gets really deep in the weeds, where it's just like the complication of one of these situations can just get sideways really quickly, and that might be what's taking so long. But it's if Apple gets it or Amazon gets it, you really can't charge. You can't subscribe. You can't force people to subscribe to it, because then you're not getting the casual fan. You're just getting the hardcore fan.
Right.
I liked Amazon for Thursday Night Football. I mean, I'm constantly on the move. Like, for instance, I got to take my kids to practice tonight, right? Thursday Night Football, throw it up on my phone. I see everything. It's super clean. It's super easy. I can come home, throw it up on the TV, super clean, super easy. Man, if that's the future of college football, I'm excited for it. That's what got me excited for it. I'm like, if you can do it right, this is an amazing opportunity for the Pac. It'll push them ahead. You give them the right deal. And the other part of that is everybody's like, well, the Pac's getting somewhere between 18 and 22 million. That's from ESPN. That's ESPN money. If Apple's coming in and saying, I'll match whatever ESPN does, and they come at 18, 22, they're looking at 40, and then you throw on the escalators, they're right with everybody. But I just don't have confidence that they're going to be able to do this right, because, there are people that say the subscription. There's people like me that says you can't do subscription. It's just how are you going to run it? Because you get one shot. That's it. One shot at this, because if you piss off all your college football fans, we have the NFL. We'll watch our alum play in the NFL, and we'll just have to be content.
Yeah, that makes sense. Immaculate, you haven't said anything for a minute. Do you have any comment?
Oh, in terms of the Disney stuff.
Yeah.
That's actually way out of my comfort zone. I have no idea. I generally listen to Mohan Vision, and when it comes to that, he's a little more dialed in to the corporate side of that.
Does anybody know what this means? This is from Patrick Viegel. I'm going to say it like that until he corrects me. The CW deal is only 8 teams in the ACC. Did you guys know that? That's something I didn't read. Can you get us a link on that, or can one of you guys maybe do a Google search while I'm doing Command Central here? Look up and see if it's only 8 teams. Then what are the 8 teams? The sucky teams? And
Well-
I say that parenthetically because from year to year you could have a different bad team.
If this is quote unquote tier 3, that's where I think that might be coming from. Is that this isn't going to be the higher content that's ESPN is holding on to.
Right.
So I don't know if it's directly to those schools or if they're just saying that this is tier 3, so you're going to get the lower level content that is left over after the rest have been picked over. So that's probably true regardless whether it's just the bottom 8. Because what do you consider a bottom 8? I mean, what are we basing this ranking on?
Right. I don't know. This is something I didn't know. I'm just going off of his comment.
I think it just means it's quote unquote tier 3.
Yeah, it says 50 ACC games.
Okay,
So
but
12? There's 12 games.
I think Greg said there was 13 games total.
Yeah.
So,
That's-
but I don't know
I think
what that
the
would look like.
Just
I think
only
the
makes
best
it look
example
worse
would
for the
be
pack.
as if ACC team playing FCS team, right?
Right. Maybe.
That would be tier 3.
That's the worry. That's the Pac-12 worry, right? You guys get in, you do sign a deal with them, and the only games they're really going to highlight are the ones that, frankly, any of you guys playing Cal, or you're playing Fullerton State or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. Joey Z, I think I recognize your name from Greg's show. Thanks for being here. He says, nice to see the Pac community side over here. I really appreciate everybody who's joined today. We got a lot of people watching. I know a lot of people are interested in this stuff. Greg was fantastic in giving me a bump on my show, and I want to recognize him and make sure you guys know that I love Greg Flugar, and I would do anything for him. So what is this deal with how the games are picked? Are they done week to week? This says throwing out a game or two each week for bidding to fill open slots. Is that literally done every week?
No, I think he's piggybacking off of what I was saying that the Pac would do, that they would
okay.
throw out games to be bid on week to week.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got Adam Vulture in here. Nice to see you, Adam. He says expansion to the East is the plan for the Big 12. I think Fox will pony up money for them and another East school, or your mark will not be interested. Does anybody here think he's going to take? He actually is going to take UConn if the Pac-12 shuts him down? I don't think he's going to. At this point,
They have to pay for it. Why pay for something you can get for free?
Yeah, there's no and as Moen has always said, they'll be there in 6 years, right? It's sad for them. I think they should be playing at a big boy level, but their football program fell quite ways, and it's hard to see where that would go. Anybody else have a comment on that?
Well, I don't trust ACC breaking up, so I don't see how you're going to get why you'd pay for UConn. I think there's something going on with the Pac. They're just doing their due diligence, so that way, whatever one of the 4 corners or all the 4 corners or Oregon, Washington can go, hey, you know what? We did our due diligence. We turned over every single rock. We looked at every different linear program, every streaming program. They can't work it out. I'm just going to move over to the Big 12, Big 10. I'm going to get my money. Thanks for the effort, but our future's over here.
Right. I think that's fair. Let's see here. Anybody else have a comment on that before I move on?
Isn't time running out though? I was going to say, isn't the time running out to switch conferences? I mean, we're kind of coming up pretty soon on a deadline. So
yeah.
What deadline are you guys speaking about?
Well, it took USC and UCLA 11 months to do their negotiations, and we're about 11 months to go until the Pac contract's over. At some point, there's going to be no contract. So what do you do if there's no contract?
But there's no GOR. They can leave whenever they want at this point. I don't think there's a time for the Pac-12 teams to leave.
But I think like the time to take to transfer conferences, all the different operations you got to do to move over, I think that takes quite a while. I think they're running out.
So you think your mark's going to
move conferences? You
think your mark's going to put out a date then, a date certain?
I don't think
that's what it would require.
Look how dates work for San Diego State.
Yeah, well, they did that to themselves, though. Nobody asked them to do that.
Has anybody got any credible information from any Fox associates that actually write checks that say they're going to pay for anybody anywhere? Because I keep hearing that. I haven't seen one confirmation that Fox is going to pay a Pac-12 school to leave, is going to pay UConn's freight, which if they're getting basketball, that makes a little more sense that Fox would be more interested in UConn than it would the Pac-12.
There have been reports that say if a Pac-12 school moved and they're not named Wazoo or Oregon State, that they would get the full pro rata and that Fox would match so that they get the 31-7.
Now, who's reporting that? Because I've only heard of a few flaky shows who likes to get a lot of watch.
I've seen reports. I would have to look them up, Larry. I can do. If you remind me offline, I'll look them up. I know I've seen them. If there's somebody in chat that has seen that and they can give us a reference, I will look it up and I'll share it with the team. But go ahead.
I was operating under the understanding that there is a pro rata in place for any P5 school for $25 million, which is not the full.
Right.
But
that's the 67%, right?
So then it comes down to, okay, how good is this school? Do we want to then bump them up to the 32 or not? So I think there's something to both sides of this, that maybe a Washington State wouldn't get the full bump, but they could come in at 25. And if the Pac is looking at 20, 25 with, Apple, CW, maybe 25 via the Big 12 with Fox and ESPN is actually a better deal. So it's still a reasonable amount. We just need to see what the Pac deal is. That's the problem. Right. And I think that is likely because of what these two gentlemen are saying. After their media days, I think that dials up big time. That's when to really watch for something to come out.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about media days right now. That's the kicker for the Arizona Twins. You guys, you have media days in a week. Media days in a week. How are you feeling? And how, if they have to discuss realignment, it's going to ruin all your great pub for your football teams this season.
I feel like we're going to move. Real quick to kind of piggyback on Immaculate there a little bit is all this is about football. I mean, we can talk about basketball all you want, but like you need to really need to be a power conference to make it into the playoff to play for a championship game. I don't need to be a power, the Colorado State Rams, they don't need to come over, or San Diego State, they don't need to come over to the Pac to play for national championships in basketball. They're perfectly fine. So would it be nice to have a basketball program? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is football. And, this media rights deal, man, I don't even know if George Kliavkoff is going to talk. If he doesn't have anything, I wouldn't even talk. I would just maybe announce the teams, let someone else come out and represent it, because it's just going to be embarrassing. There's nothing coming out showing that they have a deal. No, not a whisper, not a rumor, nothing. And quite frankly, it's embarrassing. And I would expect no deal, no real deal. And I think the heat just gets turned up, like Immaculate says, and teams leave. We are running out of time, because you have to get your marketing together, your transportation together. The Big 12 or Big 10 have to get their marketing together. I'm sure there's something with the TV markets. They have to get their stuff together. The schools have to do it. They have to rebrand everything. Like, it's a big deal. Like, I've worked in the print industry for years, and it takes time to get these things completed. And that's just on the print side, not the digital side, not the television side, the radio side, the online. It's a huge deal. So something's got to pop here really, really soon.
Dave, you want to add anything to that?
It has to be that media day. Otherwise, it's going to be really bad. And then, again, afterwards, it's a perfect time to leave at the same time, because then you don't have to deal with those people next year. You're already gone.
That's true.
Like, announce right afterwards. Oh, I'm gone.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. By the way, if you're watching and you're just tuning in, please subscribe, hit the like button. And if you subscribe and I see your comments, they come out highlighted and I try to get to them more than just the ones that are regular. So look that up. You can find the join button on the Big 12 Mafia page. And I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So a couple Gregs are in the house. At first, I'm going to go Greg Swaim, who says the CW is $1.23 billion in debt as of March. So how did this deal get done then?
They didn't pay for anything. I mean, they're
Well,
just going to get TV.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're getting paid, so that actually
Right.
helps CW. Yeah.
The CW's getting paid. You're talking for the broadcast rights.
Well, yeah, Raycom would be paying
Right.
them for putting it out because this is Raycom's deal.
Okay.
So Raycom would be paying them.
Oh, I was reading that reverse. I was thinking that they would be expending more money. So that's what it is. Okay, I've got
Maybe,
that backwards.
but
Is that what you're saying?
Raycom's getting the pay, but I'm guessing that Raycom needed to find someone to fill this position. Otherwise, they were going to lose their deal.
But isn't CW paying ESPN for the rights?
Is that how it's
Yeah.
set up?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm asking. I thought that's what it was.
Yes. Raycom is paying ESPN.
Yeah. So that means they're going in the whole more. I don't know. It's just that's an interesting fact. I didn't know that, Greg.
Lots of companies carry lots of debt like that. That's not
Right.
unusual. I believe that's part of the Nexstar Media deal with them too. Is that's debt that's not on paper. It's the way that these companies do finances is completely backwards. Like if you or I ran a business the way some of these guys run businesses,
Right.
some businesses like that, it's good for them to carry debt. So they want to carry that debt. But yeah, that's a lot of that debt, I believe, was resolved with that Nexstar Media acquisition. That was part of it.
Okay.
Was, getting that debt restructured.
It's not a good look, regardless. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. It's a little more complex than just saying you owe somebody money. Greg Flugar, the Godfather, him and Jen Williams are my godfathers. The two families is what I like to call those two guys. He says Brett McMurphy and Dennis Dodd, multiple reports that any Pac-12 school joining the Big 12 would get full rate. So Larry, that's I guess you would have to look that up, but that's what Greg is saying.
Right. Brett McMurphy and Dennis Dodd.
Right.
Right, but not a Fox executive.
No. You're not going to hear from a carrier.
Well, anymore it seems like a lot of reporters are getting a lot of bad news, or a lot of bad info. So, I mean,
Right, you're not going to hear that from an executive anyway. Because
Yeah,
that's going to open them up for lawsuits.
Right.
So.
That's what I would think
exactly.
too.
Yeah,
But I
that's
get your
what I'm
point.
thinking.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to minimize what your point is.
No,
I'm just we hear these things, and these are two respected authors, right? They're journalists
Right.
that have won many awards, Peabody and other things. So I would find it hard to believe that they knowingly would disseminate disinformation. Now, I firmly believe that the last year there's been all kinds of disinformation put out by the carriers and also by the conferences and maybe even schools to try to force their way forward, right? So is that possible? Yeah, but there's just too many. There's been too many different stories for me not to believe that.
Right. I agree with Mo and Vision that Fox is not going to let out, even if they are, because it's kind of illegal in some ways to a degree. There's a lawsuit available if they're doing that. If
Right.
Fox is trying to do that, you've got lawsuits that could fly. So
Okay.
it is what it is.
Patrick Viegel says the CW acquired the ACC rights through Raycom, which Moen detailed a little second ago, which in turn sub-licensed the games to ESPN. Raycom Sports will produce the games for the CW. And then there's an adjunct to that. It says ACC teams including the Tar Heels, Pitt Panthers, Syracuse. Let's see. Those are all ACC teams. Are you saying, Patrick, that those are the 8 that they've claimed? I don't know.
He says include.
It includes those. Well, anyway, let's see here. Let me scroll down. Do you guys have anything that you want to add to either of those statements?
Which statement?
I don't.
Yeah, put that back up.
Nah.
Oh, I can put it back. It was about the ACC
but
and the schools involved.
Yeah, I think that
Nathan, I
they're
have
just
to get
they're
going.
just telling people what schools are
Okay.
there. So
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it, Dave.
Hey, thank you.
You
Have a
bet.
good
We'll
one.
talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Say that again. I'm sorry, Immaculate. Say that.
yeah,
what
I
you
think
said
that
again.
they're just saying, AC teams include these, so people who may not be all that familiar,
Oh, familiar with the schools.
you
Right.
know, like who's going to be available.
Yeah.
Like we all know about all this. They're not really talking to us with that. They're talking to just your
Right.
general population.
Yeah. Well, now that we've shown them, hopefully that helps people understand who we're talking about. Let's see. Bill G, thanks for watching. He says they have to start working on a schedule for I'm assuming he means 2024. If further moves will occur 2024, 25, they have to be announced soon. So what do we take from the Colorado Board of Regents, but we heard nothing come out of it? That's got to be, as Greg says, cloak and dagger, right? Don't you think that means something? They didn't just hold that meeting just for the hell of it.
No, well, Colorado, their last couple of meetings, because I just watched the Regents to see what's going on, because Colorado has to have a public vote if they're leaving.
Right.
So this was they went to Bailey, Colorado this week, and they had their kind of, their getaway, their retreat, and they had these conversations. We don't know what the conversation's about, just said legal matters, athletic legal matters,
Right.
which you could assume is involved with this, and maybe they all came to an agreement either to stay in the pack or to leave the pack. But if they leave the pack, it's done. I think Greg Swaim said, this is probably a couple months ago, if Colorado left, I think the valuation drops to like the mid-teens, 15, 16 per school. And that's just not acceptable for everybody.
Right.
And then the other weird one was the brothers up north, Colorado State. They had a Regents meeting June 30th on that Friday, that deadline when San Diego State was making headlines. But I couldn't pull up. I kept getting 404 errors when I try to look at what they're talking about. So I don't know if the PAC's going to try to backfill at the top of the Mountain West Conference, and then 4 or 6 schools are going to leave the PAC.
Right.
But I honestly don't see how it's going to stick together at this point. I'd rather just leave. I mean, you can play around with the ideas of a CW and a streaming service and all these things. But man, if you're a president of a university and you're looking at this, and then you're looking at your competition, why would you stay? I don't see why you would.
Right. Larry, I know you have strong feelings about this. What are you thinking there?
Right now, I think it's really hard to read. I mean, isn't a lot of the Pac-12 teams have athletic lawsuits going right now, right?
Yeah.
Which is nuts by itself.
I mean, Comcast, and then the
Bowl.
UCLA debacle where they backed out of a game. I mean,
Right.
we're just, certain people are looking for something under the rock, hoping to find some gold. I don't think you can take much from it right now.
Okay.
And then I was curious on fans from Arizona and their big take. A lot of Utah fans have spoke out. It's nice to hear some Arizona perspectives.
I get I have a lot of conversations on Twitter with Utah fans, and it's interesting because most of the ones I talk to, they all want to stay in the pack. They don't want to go over to the Big 12 because there's this stigma. But Brett Yormark is turning things around. He's changing the stigma. He's trying to make it younger. He's trying to make it more fun, and that might benefit them for the future. I don't see where ESPN is gonna continue their success. I mean, yeah, they're bringing a lot of money, but they're firing a lot of people. I'm just like, so their money's looks tight. Fox, I think that money's tight, but Fox is kind of smart. Fox just kind of we have Big Ten and a couple of other things here. ESPN spread out in ACC, SEC, Big 12, trying to get back with the pack. And so it's like they're almost like they're spending the same amount of money, except the Big Ten has the advantage of just really where Fox was just the Big Ten. That's their advantage versus everything spread around for ESPN. So it gets really complicated when you look at that as a school. It's just like, I'm out. Like, let's just take the 4 corners, Utah, CU, and Arizona State. Let's just go to the Big 12. Unless the Big Ten's looking to secure USC and UCLA.
Well, I've put it out there before, and I'll say it again. I don't think Arizona State or Utah are out of Big Ten candidacy. Now, where you rate both of those schools, that you can always debate that, but I can definitely see the point why Utah and Arizona State would say, let's stay with the Pac short-term media deal and see if maybe we can sneak into the Big Ten. And if that doesn't work out for us, the Big 12 is going to take them anyway.
Right.
So it might be a situation with Utah in particular. I still think Utah has a strong chance to make it to the Big Ten. I think with Arizona State getting an AAU this year, I think they made a strong case for themselves because you're going to need more teams in the West.
Yep.
I am of the theory that you want a land bridge to the West. You want to have Nebraska, Utah, maybe an Arizona schools in the Pacific Northwest. But until they're ruled out as a candidate, I think those schools have to do everything they can to try and get into the Big Ten. And if that means sticking with the Pac for a while, like I told Wild Youth the other day, the best thing Utah could do is win. If Utah wins the Pac for the next 2-3 years, it's going to be really hard for the Big Ten to ignore them as a candidate.
Yep. Well, I just think it just makes too much sense. If you look at the four corner schools, if you want to do that land bridge, you bring in the four corners. USC, UCLA have history with the Arizona schools. They help bring them in from the WAC into the Pac. Then you have CU Nebraska rivalry. Nebraska's sucked ever since they moved over to the Big Ten. That might reignite Nebraska becoming stronger. That'll help CU be stronger with Prime over there in Boulder. You got the Territorial Cup. Utah's coming on strong. It just makes way too much sense, and that might be the problem. It does make too much sense for the Big Ten to bring them on, and that's just kind of been my argument, to move them over. And then, you also have the Big 12 there. But if the Big Ten also takes, 2 or 4 of the four corners, that blocks the Big 12 from moving west. So the Big 12, I know they want to expand west, and they'd rather do it with the Pac school other than bringing on San Diego State and UNLV.
So here's another. Did you want to say something, Larry or Immaculate? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, from the president's perspective, you're going to have pressures from all directions. While they might be looking at this saying, yeah, we could probably make more money in the Big 12, there's going to be a lot of people pushing back against that move. And if they just sit and wait for Kliakov to present something that's unsatisfactory, that basically becomes their argument to anyone who says we can't possibly move to the Big 12 and leave the Pac. For other reasons that maybe don't even have anything to do with sports, or the fact that the Big 12 doesn't have as many sports that are supported as the Pac. There's different reasons for different people in positions of power to push back on it. But if Kliakov can't present a good contract in a certain amount of time, then that becomes the ammo for the president to say why they would make such a move. I know Chris said earlier about time-wise, they're going to run out of time, because while most times this takes 2 years to move, that's with agreements and things in place. With no gore, no nothing with the Pac, they could probably do it within a year, but you really don't want to push this too long. I personally, living here, would love ASU in the Big 12, just as a coast to coast. If they have a shot in the Big 10, I think I agree with Moen. I think you wait. And I think we've seen that. We've seen a lot of real positive talk from Colorado and Arizona towards looking east, because they're kind of their own thing. They have their own standards. They could go either way. They have their own research that's on their own. If Arizona State really wants to get in the Big Ten, which I've said they're a dark horse for a while. Just as someone, I'm from Iowa. There's a lot of people from the Midwest here.
Yep.
Big Ten folks love Scottsdale. Big Ten has its meetings here quite often. If the ASU got into the Big Ten, expect to have the back half of your schedule be all home games.
Yep.
Because those people are coming, because they'd rather watch their team play in Tempe than they would up in, anywhere up north.
Look at all our restaurants. We have our White Castle. We're building a second White Castle, Rosati's, Portillo's, Chicago Hamburger Company. We are a we're Midwest.
It's all over the place
desert.
here.
Like we
Ours
are a
really
Big
is.
Ten city.
Our show is devolved when we're talking about restaurants. All right, let me move on to the next thing. Larry, I'm going to let you talk about that for a second, but let me just get this out that of the 4 schools that I think are primed to go to the Big Ten, Stanford already, according to Moen, is pretty much out because of the research stuff and whatnot. In order, I think it's Washington, and then it's Arizona State. I think it's Utah, and then I think it's Oregon. But that's just my list. But all 4, I think, all 4 of those are great schools. Nobody's, this isn't a judgment about the schools themselves, but I just got to believe that all the money's back east, guys. Those ACC schools, the Big Ten's not going to do anything until something happens back east.
Well,
and Notre Dame.
My theory is, and I know Immaculate's theory is 25, but I think 24.
Right, and I
think you
agree
end
with
up
that.
at 24.
And I think 6 schools could go to the Big Ten from back east. So if you go to 24, if you go to 24, that's 2 schools out of the Pac-10.
I see 3 to 4 schools available in the ACC that the Big Ten would take. I don't see them taking, and that's going to be whether or not they can get them.
Right. Obviously, the SEC is trying to get them too. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Well, that ACC breaks up, all hell breaks loose.
All right, Larry.
Right.
You get 3 minutes. I'm going to put you on the clock. Talk about Utah and the Big Ten.
It's one of those things. I agree with Mo and Vision. They're fine. They're not as big as Washington, brand wise. Washington's been around. Washington's a little better. ASU and Utah are pretty close as far as viewership, averages, academics. Utah's got a little more football prestige as of late, but it's hard to see. I agree with Mo and Vision. Utah is, and it's been said for a while, they're trying to get into one of the big 2. I mean, Kyle Whittingham said that in the moment USC and UCLA announced.
Right.
And so I think that's been the direction the university's going to try to go in. We've heard rumors they're supposedly going to they're going to try to spend over $1 billion in the next couple of years annually on research. So, which means they're paying off other universities in a different way.
Right.
So, that's another thing. So that's where I'm at.
And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yep.
Blake says CW is a sub-licenser. That's why I said CW can't afford to fill up their entire catalog with ACC and PAC. I'm not sure who said that, but yeah, we recognize that. It's not enough money. They're hoping for exposure to help their channel not get rich. Yeah, there has to be some sort of a tactical play involved with all of this. So if you're watching right now and you want your comment read, please either give us a super chat or subscribe to the channel. It's a lot cheaper if you're going to be coming to the channel over and over again to do a subscription. I've got 3 of them. Just sign up for one of them and just know that all that money is being reinvested in the show. I'm not getting rich on it. Let's see here. If PAC doesn't have a deal by media day, looks bad, but in the end doesn't matter. If teams were leaving, they would have already done so. Too much 4D mental chess going on by some talking heads. So Pickles is saying it's been overthought, and at this point, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen before now. Do you guys agree with that?
No, because when this all went down, when USC and UCLA left, the talk was the Big Ten doesn't want to take Oregon and Washington in fear that they would get sued for destroying the PAC.
Right.
And so everybody, and they just want the 4 corners to leave first, because if the 4 corners leave first, then the Big Ten would have come in and took Oregon, Washington. That was the talk.
Right.
Nobody wants to get sued. So if we play by those rules, nobody wants to get sued. This has to get stretched out. It's really easy to say, hey, we went into Pac-12 Media Day. There was no deal. There was no framework. There is no gore. We've given you every opportunity. We need the time to move into whatever conference. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. George, you gave it your best shot, bud. It didn't work out. There's no deal. Everybody seems to forget. June 30th, 2024, there's no deal.
Right.
What are they going to do? They have to go before that. They can't wait till the very last day and pull a San Diego State. It's not going to happen.
Anybody want to speak to that, or is Chris captured it for everybody?
No, I agree with that. That's pretty, the argument that they'd have left already. No, they have to do their due diligence. They have to be able to go to their boosters and their alumni base and say, look, we did everything we could before we left.
Right. Yep. Okay, that's fair. Greg Swaim says, by the way, Greg's a partner of mine, so shout out to Greg. I know a lot of people knock on Greg. I'm just gonna go on the stand on the soapbox for a minute. Greg is a personality, people. He is not. He doesn't run Nightline, and he doesn't work for the Wall Street Journal. So tune in, don't tune in. But Greg Swaim's an entertainer. If you're taking him for anything else, that's on you. And he does know people. Anyway, Pac-12 schools who leave for Big 12 get full pro rata, which he said before, which shows ESPN and Fox Sports both clearly want the demise of the Pac-12. That's his opinion. Klavkov, I almost said it, effed around and found out when he turned down merger 11 months ago. So when we talk about the Big 12, and that's really what I want to circle everything back to, is the Big 12 sitting there. They're having a great media days. I know your Mark had a great day yesterday. I assume you had a great day today. I've been doing other things, haven't been up on it today, but it's really exciting. The energy around the Big 12 is huge right now. It's going to be hard to avoid wanting to be pulled into that center of gravity if you're a Pac-12 school just floundering, aren't you?
Well, if there's no media deal by Pac Media Days, it's certainly going to be a good dichotomy of the two. You're going to have all this hype on the Big 12, and what's the Pac going to do to live up to that?
Right. I think that's fair. I really do.
Kliakov is scheduled to talk. He is the opening person. So, and there will be questions. So if they don't have something before, then he better expect some questions.
They better figure out how to give him laryngitis before then.
It's going to be fun to watch.
I think it's one of these situations where people can't trust anything he says. When he did speak months and months ago, everything he said was either an outright lie or it was a prevarication of some sort. The whole thing, the one that sticks out, and I know I said this earlier, but I just cannot understand how in any way, shape, or form it made sense when he was delaying just to get to the UCLA decision by the Board of Regents for the state of California. The excuse he used was they don't do business in December. It's complete nonsense.
Well, right. He's prone to saying dumb things. I don't think he's a dumb person. He's just prone to saying dumb things.
You don't think there was any intent there?
Well, I think there was an intent, but his intent was probably like, look, we're going to take the last 2 weeks off of December from dealing with this crap.
Right.
As a holiday. But instead of saying that, he goes, well, nobody
does
works
business
in December. Yeah, nobody does business at the end of
All
December.
right, so he's just incompetent. All right, that's fine.
I didn't say he's incompetent. I said he says stupid things.
Look, I'm a project manager for a living. I've been doing it for 25 years. If I showed up to work and I just started telling stories about getting projects done just so I didn't have to do work, I'd get fired. Okay? So when I talk about things that he has done, a lot of the stuff he's done in other circumstances would deserve a firing. So that's I mean, I don't understand why people aren't more critical of the performance that he's had or the lack of performance, because honestly, it for all we know, it could have cost people jobs. It could have certainly caused anxiety in these organizations. I just find that hard to believe that everybody's just okay with it.
Well, absolutely, but he was dealt a terrible hand.
Okay, I'm going to
Larry
check you on
Scott.
that.
Larry Scott left a dumpster fire there.
That's true,
That
but he came in and
situation was
look,
a Larry Scott deal. The
so
whole
let's break this down.
network was a Larry Scott deal.
When the thing broke out about the $5 million for each team, so $60-70 million for Comcast, he fired the two guys that had only been in charge just a little bit before him. They had no control over that, but he had to fire somebody. He couldn't fire himself. So he fired two guys that are now suing they're one of the many, two of the many people suing the Pac-12 for actions that were just not good. I just don't, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I don't understand it.
I have a question for you though. Nathan.
Yeah.
If they were to fire him right now, I think most people would be like, good move. But then the second half of that is, who could you find that's capable of doing the job that be willing to accept that job right now?
Well, if you're asking me the question, I would have fired him when the
Yeah.
Comcast news came out. So
right, but they're kind of
it-
stuck with them now.
now I agree with you. Now they kind of are, but I don't know. Larry's back there doing paroxysms of movements, and I'm not sure what he wants to say. Maybe he wants to rip into me, but
You could have thrown Brett Yormark, switch him up.
right.
You threw Brett Yormark in there. Brett Yormark goes into negotiations. The 31 million's offered, whatever. Just like it was to George Kliakoff.
Right.
George isn't the one that turned down the deal that the Big 12 took. It was the presidents that said no. It wasn't George. He works for the presidents. I think people forget that. And from what I've been told, and I reported this months ago, Oregon and Washington had a carrot in front of their face. They
Right.
weren't going to sign anything. They weren't going to work with anybody to get a deal. There was a carrot out there.
So if that's the case, then why are we still talking about a new deal then?
Yeah, it's the offer's always been there. You can't have a deal unless you have an offer. Once you get
Right.
an offer, you negotiate. Once you've decided what you want in your negotiations, then you make a deal. So we keep talking about a deal when there's two parts before a deal. You can't have a deal without an offer, and then the offer you have to have negotiations. So I just think it's a mess. George is a mess. They won't let him come out. I hate the PR as a Pac-12 fan. Like, just
been
come
brutal.
out and spill the beans.
Right. It's been
And
brutal.
let's be honest, Arizona, somebody needs to put a cork in that guy's mouth. Every time
Right.
anything comes out that has a positive spin, that guy's on a tarmac saying, I don't know about a verbal phantom, right?
No, he and Schultz have been disasters. And,
And
oh,
then-
by the way, now Schultz is the president of the
Right.
president's little group, which is just
What do you think
that
about this,
boggles my
Robbins?
mind.
I like the tarmac in Big Lubbock. Like, somebody put a cork in that guy's mouth. He's
All
just,
right.
he's the
That's
worst.
why we
thing.
want to put up a wall just north of Tucson.
All right.
There's no secret.
Jesus Vasquez, maybe Vaz says Zona needs to just get the numbers what they are. And then I feel a move to the Big 12 since the numbers are not going to be good. I think, Jason Shear, I think, has said that he would prefer Arizona to just move and walk away from this mess. At the end of the day, let's wrap up Pac-12, and then I want to come back to Big 12 right before we end. If you guys think that nothing happens, they have their media day, which I think is okay. That's another funny thing. It's a media day. That tells you how limited they're actually getting. All of this is so embarrassing.
No one wants to be there.
It's crazy how much they've wrecked you guys' reputation. And I feel bad for Utah. I feel bad for Arizona State. I feel bad for Colorado. I feel bad for Washington State and Oregon State.
They're getting
You know,
hosed.
They're
Really
getting
hosed.
thrown out with the trash. And Washington State especially, not so much about Oregon State, but I have ties to Washington State. So it's frustrating when you see those things happen. Anybody else want to say anything about Pac-12 before I walk away from them? I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, if I didn't have a media deal, I'd only want one media day too. You want them to drag them across the cold for 3 days? Have a little sympathy.
That's what they do at Biden.
I have no sympathy. Hey, we're up to 80 viewers, which means we got a lot of people agreeing with us, guys. That's what
I
that
do have
says.
sympathy for Oregon State, though. I mean, they're finally doing great in football,
Right.
and their conference is about to fall apart.
Right,
Yep.
that's absolutely
Like,
true.
And they're going to get left behind.
I actually
Yeah.
think they're going to win their division and go to the championship. And
I would love Oregon State to be there. I really
Yeah,
would.
so-
It would break a lot of people's hearts. I'm looking north up on the hill, I think. Break their hearts. I'm okay with that. Larry, you're not going to yell at me? Come on.
No,
It's an
I've been
easy
very
one.
defensive tonight. I hope everybody can. I
You're
don't
not
know,
being
man.
offensive at all.
Yeah.
Nobody would
No,
say that.
defensive. I've been very
Oh,
defensive
yeah,
tonight.
yeah, maybe a little bit. That's okay.
Maybe a
You can
little
be
bit,
defensive. But passionate is what we've got you here for.
Okay.
if
Greg
anyone
said-
understands that, it's Big 12 folks, because those folks have been defensive for like a decade or more now.
Yeah, something like that.
Hey, I'm not
Um,
going to put this on them. that, I'm picking up on their stuff. I'm going to own it for myself.
There you go. Pickles, actually, Greg Swaim's replying to Pickles. He says, you're aware the Big 12 signed a media package paying far more per team than they did with UT and OU. That's sort of old news at this point, but how's the Pac-12 doing? He's getting into it back and forth with Pickles. I'm not going to get in the middle of that.
I'll get in. I'll jump in that.
Go ahead. Yes.
Dude,
hit Greg. I'm sure.
I'm sorry. USC and UCLA has not been a top 2 team since 2002. They've been near the top. Well, sorry. USC's been near the top. UCLA has been the most overhyped squad. They just took the biggest media market that the Pac has.
Right.
Utah has been a far better school consistently through football than USC has. And I don't even mention UCLA. They haven't put anything on the football field in years. But Utah's been better. ASU, probably just under USC on consistency with their football programs. We have Herm and the Herm train, all that. But it's not the product. I don't think USC and UCLA are going to do well in the Big Ten. I just don't. I think they're going to be fairly mediocre. The travel's going to get to them. It's going to hurt their recruiting.
Right.
But they took the LA market. That's what's paying everybody out on their Big Ten contracts. It's the LA market.
Right.
Utah will be just as good, going to the Big Ten, just to show that I'm unbiased, and they would go and do well, especially they'd be closer to Nebraska. They'd probably do a really good job recruiting. It's like, I'll take some California kids. I'll take some Rocky Mountain kids. And you can play Nebraska. You play Cali. We're good to go.
USC is some Irish bait too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'll get to the Irish in a second.
I'm not as down on USC and UCLA in the Big Ten because, look, you're getting $100 million. You're in Los Angeles. You've got all this NIL money.
Right.
They'll be okay. If Lincoln Riley can figure out a defense.
Yes.
The minute he figures out how to get a defense,
right,
boy, we're in trouble. That's what we've been waiting for in Columbus for the last 4 years.
Someone
to figure out how to put a defense.
The one thing that is there's only one school in the entire country that can travel to any time zone, and that's BYU. And that's because they've had to, right? There is going to be a major adjustment at USC and UCLA, who have had these coddled schedules where everybody's basically a car drive away, little, half hour, 45-minute puddle jumper type trips. They're going back 2-3 time zones. It's going to be extremely difficult for them to go back east. USC at Ohio State, yeah, it'll be a big game, but the first 4 of those will be blowouts. Games to Michigan, they're going to be blowouts because it is hard to travel, put your bodies in a different time zone. And BYU's really, Notre Dame does it a little, but they also play most of their games close. It's very hard to do.
But if you look so here in Arizona, our bodies get closer to being used to the heat than it does the cold. And you're going to ask all these California kids, 4,000-mile round trips or more, if they go out to New York, playing in 0-degree weather, with humidity.
Right.
Man, you getting hit in 10-degree weather and you're used to sunny days, 65, 70 degrees every single day. You're not going to sign up for that when you can just jump over to Oregon State or Arizona State, or even Utah and Colorado have better winters than the Midwest.
Right.
And they're still closer. So you would reduce your travel time. You're going to have better weather. You're not going to be going out to Ohio State to get your face kicked in, or Michigan or Wisconsin. I just don't see how it works short term. They're going to look fine. Year 4, 5, 6, they're going to regret it. 2028, their contract's up after they sign it, and they're good. They'll probably bounce.
Mo,
I don't think they'll be
anything
alone by then.
Oh, there'll be other West Coast teams by then. There'll be West Coast teams
hopefully
by 2026.
Yeah, I think by 26 you're looking. There's going to be some teams. It's just
Hopefully it's
which those teams are. Earl, who's a subscriber, if you're watching and you want your comments read, become a subscriber like Earl, or send me a super chat. I want to get you involved. This show isn't about me. It's about the guys on my panel and then you guys watching. So that's the easiest way to get your comment read. Earl's a subscriber, and he says, when it comes to realignment, watch the Irish, which is Moen's. Is that on your license plate, Moen? the rumored schools in the ACC, the votes to break the grant of rights. Go ahead.
No, I've got a Notre Dame doormat I wipe my feet on every day.
Okay. All right.
I don't love the Irish. I just want them to accept their fate and join the Big Ten where they
Yeah,
belong.
I don't
I'm of the
disagree.
theory. I think I've put this out there before. If Notre Dame had just joined the Big Ten in the 1990s,
Right.
none of this would be happening right now.
I agree.
Everybody would still be where they were.
I tell you what, Moen,
Um,
if anyone thinks that Notre Dame got AAU status all on their own by their own
Right.
merits, I got oceanfront property here in Arizona to sell them.
Well, I know how difficult that is because they're a private religious school. Those two things in AAU don't mix. It's like
Yeah.
oil and water. So
Their research numbers are low.
yeah,
they
no,
don't
they don't
do medical research. They
No.
hate STEM.
It's a buy off.
Yeah,
It's
it was a
Swarbrick
buy-off.
getting buy off.
And so if we accept that that's a buy-off, and then we
Right.
accept that Miami's a buy-off, you have to look at ASU as a possible buy-off.
Yep.
Right.
and
The AAU has been a buy-off forever.
You guys can they can promote USF too.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
USF
All those things are kind of I don't know. We'll see. I
USF
guess.
is just in a great location. Like
Right.
to get,
They-
I think
they
they're being
are, of
pushed.
course.
Like
Right.
everyone wants USF to be more than they are. Like build a stadium, be a location in Tampa for us to go to. Because I mean, if you've been to Tampa, Tampa's great. So I think that USF is going to be somewhere, whatever it is. I mean, they actually have the numbers though. I mean, their numbers are like double Notre Dame's when it comes to research. So like they're actually deserving to be there.
Yeah, I have no opinion about it to be honest. I would actually laugh though if they took a USF and left, I don't know, an Arizona State or a Utah
hurt.
hanging. That would be bad. That would be a gut punch.
Yeah.
I have
sure.
USF as a potential in the SEC as the fifth team for that division area down there. But
There you go. Really, Florida would allow that?
Florida? What
Tur-
about Florida State?
I'm talking about
'cause they
the
don't-
SEC.
they don't want Miami. So,
Right.
No, I know, but you said at USF.
well, because part of my 25 is the five
Oh, the
divisions, it's the
25.
5 teams.
Right.
It's Florida
Forgot.
State, Florida, Georgia
Okay.
Tech, and you need one more down there. So that's why I think USF instead of Miami, because Miami's
Interesting.
going to go to the Big Ten.
They're getting a lot of funding, so something's going on. Mr.
Yeah.
Monkey says, thanks for joining the show. I don't understand the whole if we're leaving, they'd have left by now. They've said they're waiting to see the deal. Obviously, Monkey, you're right. We know that. It's just, I think people are getting frustrated. I'm ready for realignment to be done. I've got a whole bunch of shows I've got planned out in my head that are going to be football, and they're going to be the Holy War, BYU, Utah. I've got a whole agenda I want to put together, but honestly, this is all anybody wants to talk about, and there's a reason for it. Is it affects so many different people. Let's see here. Jesse's new to the show. He says, "Hey guys, my first time joining your live. Thanks for being here, Jesse. I appreciate it." BR says, "Welcome, Jesse. I appreciate that." Let's see. Let me get down to some of these comments that have been waiting down here. I apologize, guys. I'm just so busy. Earl Carr, subscriber, says, Greg Swain, when it comes to expansion, is the Irish under contract? If they join a conference, don't they have to join the ACC? Yeah, that is a question I've been meaning to ask for weeks. Can
Not if
somebody
the
clear that?
ACC doesn't exist.
Okay, so only if the ACC gore is broken.
And the ACC
No.
not existing is the only way this happens by 2026.
Right. But
I don't
they
think
have
ACC
other
breaks
options for Notre Dame. Notre Dame has other options to break that contract with the ACC. They just haven't used them yet.
Okay.
But the common belief is it's going to cost them about $100 million. But there is a contract legal maneuver they can do to get out of that ACC contract. When that happens is when these other ACC schools are going to be able to break that gore.
Right.
Because they're going to use the same legal maneuver that Notre Dame can use.
Right. Okay.
I think that's the threat. I think if you were to take a
Right.
combination of the SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12, you could pretty much invite the entire ACC.
Yeah.
And it just gets done a lot more smoothly. The ACC network becomes the Big 12 network.
I agree with that.
So
I actually believe that's where we may be.
I don't think
in
it's a bad
2030.
business deal for ESPN because ACC gets terrible ratings. I don't care what you're paying for. It's not getting it. Most of those schools will get better ratings in the SEC or Big 10, and the ones that aren't on that level playing in the Big 12 will get better ratings because they're actually going to be competitive. Think Wake Forest in the Big 12. I mean, it's a much better place for them to be than the ACC. And if they're not going to get into the SEC, they're the perfect school for the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't know if they fit the profile of football.
Wake Forest is huge for football. They love football. I mean, they're
Yeah, but they're already getting similar money, and it's not like they're going out and winning games.
right, but they're not going to get into the SEC or Big Ten.
Oh, I understand. No, I get them in Boston College, but your model says every league needs to have bottom dwellers too, right?
Well,
for
every
football?
game has a winner and every game has
There
a
you
loser.
go. Okay.
That's how the SEC does it.
If
Yeah,
all you
I-
do is
I
invite
know.
winning programs, then what you're doing is you're creating losing programs in the future.
I get you. And the Big 12, I think the Big 12 has benefited that everybody's been really good, but eventually over time, the strategy may backfire because there is so much parity. We'll have to see. Time will tell.
Yes and no. It's at a different level. Like the fact, if it was like big brands and you're destroying big brands over it, but you're not. So it's
Right.
kind of like one of those things where I'm actually more interested in this Big 12 than any previous iteration of the Big 12.
I think so.
Never really been that interested in the Big 12. I've more been like Big 10, PAC, SEC. And Big 12 is like, we're just going to divide them up between all of us. But now I'm like, I'm kind of interested. No one saw TCU last year.
No, they were supposed to be picked at the bottom of the league, actually.
So
CKS says that Hunter Skinner, as a Ute fan, and Larry, I this question is to you actually, or a comment. As a Ute fan, I'm going to keep my eyes on possible players transferring out of the Utah program due to lack of exposure. Makes me nervous. Obviously, BYU would be a big beneficiary there. Is that your biggest concern right now? Besides, is it exposure or recruiting?
Not at this point, not at this moment.
Okay.
I'm not super concerned about this moment because exposure, it's different when you're trying to get into the NFL versus, can I be seen by cousin Eddie who's on the other coast? Like,
Right.
These kids want to go to the NFL.
Yes.
So.
Okay. That's fair enough. I appreciate the answer. Anybody else want to say anything on that really quick?
No, that's the end of the day. There's two sides of this, right? And you can bring it up with USC. I get in this conversation with the USC fans. You want to go to the NFL, who's going to give you the best option? Any of these power schools and your top level G5 schools. The rest are students.
Right.
So what program is going to have the best opportunity to put me in front of everybody so that way I can go to the NFL? The NFL scouts know who you are. Every year they're there. That's your TV time is not going to determine your NFL experience because you're going to be on ESPN and Fox Sports, catching bombs. But the other problem is also getting that exposure because they kind of go hand in hand. And, when you're looking at students going, hey, I need to get my degree. I'm the second string left tackle. I'm not going to the NFL. I need to get these things. That's where I see leaving these schools on an island, West Virginia, USC, Oregon, Washington would be kind of on an island themselves, is they're not going to get the depth. The NIL money will pay for the top stars, the top athletes, and everything. They won't get the depth because they're going to sit there and go, I have to get my degree. I can't be sitting on a flight or a bus doing my homework. I need to be closer to campus to get this stuff done. I think you're going to see that. It'll never be talked about it, but I think that's where a lot of this issue is. But again, how do I get to the NFL? How do I get my degree? And where do those all mix?
I think there's a lot to that. Greg, another comment. So he's asking you guys, and all four of you can answer this. So asking our esteemed Utah and Arizona State, but I would include Moen and Immaculate in this. If the deal is just 19.5, dang it, Greg, you're dragging me back to the Pac-12. Okay, this is the last Pac-12 thing. I'm so tired of Pac-12 realignment. If the deal is just 19.5, what's funny about that is Ute wants to do a special show tomorrow, and it's only on realignment. So I might just shoot myself in the head. Anyway, if the deal is just 19.5 and precious little linear, are you staying? Larry, are you staying?
Yeah, they'll stay. The $10 million isn't going to matter.
Okay.
I totally disagree. Out, gone. Because I keep saying that 19.5, that's from ESPN.
Right.
If Apple or Amazon can come in with their own 19 or their 20, and we're at 40 million, they stay. That's where it all comes in together. If they can't get over 20 million, they said over a couple million, they would stay in the pack. That is 13 million, 12.5 million behind.
Right.
And then when I talk to, congrats to all the new Big 12 schools. Good job, getting your Power 5. But you guys are behind the Big 10 and the SEC in their money. So when you start looking, the Pac-12, everybody calls us arrogant. and cocky and all these things. If I'm arrogant, I'm looking at that $19.5 million and I'm looking at what the Big Ten's getting. I'm like, no, because if I'm Oregon and Washington, I'm going to go get Big Ten money. And at the very worst, we're all going to go get Big 12 money. But then we have to go sell it to Brett Yormark because he said, I don't want someone coming to the Big 12 for my money. I want someone coming to the Big 12 because they love and believe in the Big 12.
He
So
did say that, yeah.
there's going to be two sale pitches on both sides. Someone like, no, I'm not really coming over for the money, but I'm coming over for the money, and I'm going to do everything I can to love the Big 12. Or they're going to go to the Big 10 and say, peace out, we waited long enough. And that's what it is. But $19.5 million, no. Not even with all the research money they're getting, because that research money is going to dry up because they're not getting the TV exposure because they're not getting the students.
Could I add something to this question to ask Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to compare the Big 10 and the Big 12, taking this back to the Big 12
Okay.
in terms of a location for ASU. Would you want to be in a division with USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, or would you rather be in a division with Arizona, ASU, Utah, BYU, and maybe then like a Colorado or an Oregon State? For Arizona State, as a fan, as an alumni, as someone who wants to see them do good, where do you think ASU is actually going to do better?
They would actually do better with the Colorado scenario.
With the Big 12?
With the Big 12. I think the exposure and the bragging rights and the arrogance that's always talked about us would prefer going up into the Big 10. But if you're only looking at the West Coast, USC, UCLA, and Oregon, Washington, man, they just don't fit that model. You know, they're kind of in between. So yeah, Big 12, that would definitely be a better fit for ASU, and I'd be happy watching that. Like I'd be good either way with either of those scenarios, but definitely having those closer ties and those rivalries. That territorial cup matters. It's the oldest cup in college football. I do not want to split that up. As much as everybody down south annoys me, I don't want to split that up. Colorado's been an interesting, more personal rival for me, but that gets better because whatever weird reason, CU thinks they can beat us. And Utah has been an excellent, team to play against. I went to an ASU Utah game and great fans. They rode us the entire time, and then afterwards was like, hey, that was a great game. Good job. So yeah, I would definitely want to be on that side.
Yeah, as someone living here and as a Big Ten guy, of course I would like to see him in the Big Ten.
Right.
But if I'm just looking at the football team, if I'm looking at sports, if I'm looking at having some success with that, I think I would probably be more excited to see ASU in the Big 12 because I think when you look at a TCU coming up there, that's where ASU could probably shine.
Yep.
You're going to have access into Florida, into Texas, into some good markets, some good locations for recruits. If ASU can actually keep all of Arizona's recruits with USC and UCLA jumping to the Big Ten, I think that opens up California more, like you've been saying.
Yeah.
For football, ASU, I think the Big 12 is a better choice.
Yep.
But as far as the university heads, if there's any chance that they go to the Big Ten, that might hold them up.
Immaculate or Moen, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think for ASU it's a tough choice, but I can see them jumping to the Big 12. I still think they're a Big 10 candidate, but I do think that they're below Utah. Nothing against ASU. I just think Utah is a more desirable football brand.
It's definitely, Utah has been consistent throughout the whole thing. We had to deal with Todd Graham and him leaving Pitt and then him finding a little bit of success and then kind of bottoming out. Herm, not even know what a Sun Devil is and just kind of pretending and faking his way through the whole thing. And then the COVID investigation, which still is going on. And Dillingham's been awesome. Nobody expected Dillingham to come out just firing away. We're all excited. We think Dilly is going to be great. And, we're excited for it. But, yeah, Utah's been consistent, and, more power to them.
Yeah. I don't think Arizona State ever recovered from Joe Germain to David Boston.
No.
Only Arizona State fans will get that one, but and Ohio State fans. But
Larry, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm just sitting here listening, learning what I can.
All right, no problem. Devil Frog says Stu Mandel just declared CW as a national brand. I post that without comment. But this thing I think this makes sense from Hunter Skinner. Most logical solution is consolidating the pack with Mountain West. Hawaii goes back to the WAC, and only downfall would be Cal, Stanford, and San Jose. I don't know. I think that's pretty a reach.
That'll be for Oregon State and Washington State after
Yeah.
the Four Corners and Oral leave.
Right. I think that's probably true. Let's see here. C. John says, so is there any angle possibility the CW somehow is tied to the pack? We talked about this earlier. There is a chance, right? We all believe that could possibly be happening. Does anybody disagree that CW could be talking to the pack? How about that?
I don't think they are. If CW doesn't have the money to do it.
Okay. I like this comment from Jesse. This is supposed to be a special year for the Pac-12 football season, but this media deal is killing the vibe. That's what I was saying earlier.
Yep.
It's exactly what I was saying, Jesse. Let's see here. Get more. I don't see any super chats. You guys don't love me, so I'm not getting super chats. But I am trying to get to comments that are posted. Greg says UCLA and USC are clearly the biggest brands the Pac-12 had. I don't know if I agree with Greg on that, but the Big 12 shows they overcame that with additions, no additions for Pac-12 to make. I wish Washington had been picked instead of UCLA, but that's a personal thing.
I think USC nixed that. I think Washington was probably preferred by the Big Ten over UCLA.
Right.
But I think UCLA nixed that. Because if they're going to be over there alone on an island for a while, they'd probably rather have the school with them that's right across town.
I would have to find the article, but I was reading somewhere that USC doesn't want any competition on the West Coast.
They've said that, but again, the Big Ten has to think bigger picture. The USC is not driving the bus anymore.
That's why nobody signed the deal, and that's why you would pick up some of those Four Corner schools.
Right.
So that way, say, like, look, the Four Corners, you can beat up on them. They're that lower tier that we're talking about earlier that USC can kind of pick on for a little bit.
Right.
Gives that financial value, and it bridges them in there. But I'm telling you, I think it's 2028. The Big Ten deal is supposed to be up. If USC isn't happy, I would not be shocked to see USC look elsewhere.
Interesting.
That's
USC to
my
the
conspiracy
SEC.
theory.
USC to the SEC. That would be really interesting. Houston Cat, thanks for being here. Is there a real drop dead date for the Pac-12 media deal? I think the real drop dead date is what? June 30th, 2024, right? That's when the thing ends.
No, before kickoff. Before kickoff. That's what I'm telling you right here. Before kickoff.
Right, we've heard it here first. Before, what is it, September 3rd or something?
Before the first Pac kickoff, before that foot touches that ball, there better be a deal or schools are leaving.
All right. Yormark, and this is something we've touched on, but Monkey says, Yormark has said he doesn't want anybody for a paycheck. Would he not offer Utah, for example, if he thought they weren't in for the long haul? I personally don't think he would be that short-sighted, but he has said those words that he didn't want to bring anybody in with for a paycheck. What do you guys think about that? That's a great question.
If I was Joe Mark, I would offer the next Pac school, the first Pac school that wants to come over, I'd offer them a no exit fee clause. Meaning you come over here right now, you can leave whenever you want to leave. You just come over here and pow, the Pac is pretty much screwed. And then I'll get other Pac schools to fill your shoes if I need to. Like if Colorado or ASU or anyone is looking at the Big Ten, like, okay, you can have a no exit clause or no exit fee clause to go to the Big Ten whenever you want to. Doesn't matter. Here, just come over here now, break up the Pac. I can get some other schools here.
It's political speak. It's political speak.
Yeah, 100.
Well, and here's
because
the deal.
if nobody comes over, you can say I didn't want them because they didn't love us.
Yep.
If they come over, they're throwing a parade. It's political speak.
Oh, for sure.
That's good. That's good.
I'll make this my last thing because I got to bounce out here real quick.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up anyway, but go ahead.
Hey, I'll just say this: if you don't bring in Utah, regardless if they're coming in for money or if they believe in the Big 12, you can't sell them on the idea of being in the Big 12. If you do the other idea of they just stay in the Pac for a short-term deal and then move to the Big 10, the Big 12 never had a chance to sell them on the idea. You got to get them in-house. You got to sell them on the idea, and then you move on from there.
Any other comments to that?
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, even if you have to give them a no exit fee time for a certain amount of time, just so that way they could leave if they don't like it, I'd let them. And then you could say that goes right along the lines with this. Hey, we're letting them leave if they don't like it because we don't want them if they don't like it.
Exactly.
I agree with that. We're going to end on this, everybody. CW canceled the Gilmore Girls, Larry. As he hangs his head.
Who doesn't
Yeah,
love the
so
Gilmore Girls?
So they can't afford the 30-year syndicated shows.
Okay.
Oh, brother.
Greg,
I did not
well,
know that. I didn't know they.
Greg, are you too elitist and too good for the Gilmore Girls? Huh?
Hey,
Who doesn't love Rory?
do they
They're
have
just
Magnum?
making
is the
room for
best.
pack. They're
Who
making
does-
room for pack games on
Who
like
does
Tuesday
who
nights.
does Magnum PI reruns? That's what I want to know. Let's see. Larry Pilgrim Monkey says you don't know Big 12 history, though. I do believe the Big 12 decision makers do not want short timers. I don't know about that. I've said for months, in fact, I might have been the first one in the world to have this thought that I would love Washington and Oregon to come in and stay for 2 years. They boost the profile of the entire league, and then they leave to wherever they're going, and the media deal goes up. There hasn't been one media deal, not to say they couldn't, but there hasn't been a media deal that I've seen yet, unless somebody can show it to me, that once it went up, it retracted.
That reminds me of a car salesman. You can't buy the car unless you get him in there to test drive it.
There
Like,
you
you're gonna
go.
love
See?
this car. You're
There
gonna
you
love
go.
this car. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. And then this will be my last one because I have to disagree with Joe. I can't wait till UCF comes to Provo, Joe. I'm looking forward to it. It's elevation and depending on the weather. Anyway, everybody, you guys have been fantastic. I appreciate you coming on and giving me 10 minutes at the beginning where my audio was jacked. And next time that happens, Immaculate, you need to take over, man. Start asking questions.
All
Turn
right,
this into a panel show.
I'll admit I was half watching that. I saw you say, I'm like, okay, I got this. All right.
I appreciate it anyway. You guys have been fantastic as always. Again, last reminder, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. All these guys, let me get this comment off. This is where you can find these guys on Twitter. And it really matters. Their contacts are here. Please look them up. They're good guys to follow and contact. They have good conversation and definitely hit them up. Otherwise, Big 12 Mafia, the Holy Rivals, we're going to be doing a show tomorrow. Oh, Bill, thank you very much for the super chat. Give me a $10 super chat. Thanks so much, Bill. I really appreciate it. That money will go into building the rest of my shelves behind me. Anyway, I think we're going to have a show tomorrow. We're going to do a Holy Rivals show with me and Ute. We're going to talk about Pac-12 again. I can't wait till I don't have to talk about that anymore. And we'll sort of go from there. But look for those invites. If you are subscribed, please turn on your notifications so you make sure you receive those. Otherwise, I'll give you reminders on YouTube and on Twitter. Anyways, everybody have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll talk tomorrow. Peace.
Cool. See ya. Go Devils.